Okay, this is continuation of trigonometry. Now, I want to talk about angles that are greater than 90 but less than 360. Even we'll still do for the one that is greater than 360 and the one that are negative. Okay, for this one now, you need to know a simple something that we have four quadrants. This is called the first quadrant. This is the second quadrant. We go anti-clockwise, okay? But in bearing and distance, we go clockwise. But in trigonometry, normal angles, we go anti-clockwise. So this is C, first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, and the fourth quadrant. Okay, so there's something that we call cast. And that cast, we start from fourth quadrant and go anti-clockwise. So cast, C, A, S, T, cast. So this cast means that in the first quadrant, okay, and first quadrant means in the first quadrant that everybody is positive. That is why we have A. A means all. In the first quadrant, everybody is both sine, cos, and tangent. The three of them, they are all positive. Okay, but in second quadrant, only sine is positive. The rest is negative. In the third quadrant, only tan is positive. In the fourth quadrant, only cos is positive. So for the first quadrant, quadrant means the first quadrant is from 0. 0 is less than 90 degree, is theta, and theta is less than 90. So first quadrant means anything that falls from 0 to 90 degrees, in between them. Okay, anything that falls in between 0 and 90 degrees. So from 0 to 90 degrees is first quadrant. Then from 90 degrees to 180 degrees is second quadrant. Then from 180 degrees to 270 degrees is third quadrant. Then 270 degrees and 360 degrees is third quadrant. But in our calculation, we don't use 270. Okay, you know that if I draw this thing and go around like this, that is going to form a circle. So in our calculation, we don't use any of these two. In fact, okay, let me say we don't use 270. In fact, most of the time we don't use this, unless maybe you want to compare sine and tan, sine and cos, or cos and tan. That is only when we use the. But we don't. It's either you use half of the circle or use full of the circle. It's either you use half of the circle, which is 180, or you use the full circle, which is 360. So in your calculation, you can only use 180 and 360. Please don't use 270 in your calculation. So in the first quadrant, sine theta is the same thing as what? Sine theta. It doesn't change. Plus cos theta is the same thing as what? Cos theta. It doesn't change. Tan theta is the same thing as what? Tan theta. It doesn't change. But what happened in the second quadrant? Second quadrant is from from 90. From 90 degrees to 180 degrees. Look at what happened here now. Sine theta there. Theta means that your angle is now greater than 90. So we want to take it back to that 90. If you want to take it back to 90, it's going to be what? Sine 180 minus theta. Okay? Sine 180 minus theta. You will take it back to that first quadrant. Anything you are doing, you must take it back to first quadrant, because in first quadrant it's very easy to find the sine, tan, and cos. So we do take them. If it falls here, you have to take it back here. If it falls here, you have to take it back here. If it falls here, you have to take it back here. So this is how to take it back. So if it's in the second quadrant, say 180 minus theta, we are still going to solve calculation to know that. I used plus because in the second quadrant only sine is positive. That is why we have S here. So but watch now. Cos theta, if you want to take it back to first quadrant, it will be minus cos 180 minus theta. Okay, then for tan theta will be what? Minus tan 180 minus theta. So now let's talk about the third and the fourth quadrant. The third quadrant is from 180 to 270. Okay, look at what happened there now. Sine theta now, theta is anything that fall between, is the anything that is greater than 180 but is less than 270. I told you that we don't use 270, so since we don't use 270, we are going to use this man. So it's going to be, since theta is bigger than this man, because theta is less than this man, which means 180 is less than theta, which means theta is greater than this. So since theta is greater than this, we will say that theta that is greater than minus sine that theta that is greater than then minus 180, because we don't use 270 at all. You know what we did here? Theta is less than this, that is why we say 180 minus theta. But here 180 is now less than theta, so that is why we are saying theta minus 180. We don't use 270. Please don't use 270. So why did I put minus? Because in my third quadrant only tan is positive. So I will say what? For cos now should be what? Minus cos theta minus what? 180. Okay, for tan theta should be what? I will not use minus again, because only tan is positive. So tan theta minus what? 180. So for the fourth quadrant, fourth quadrant is what? From 270 to theta to what? 360. So from 270 to 360, and we don't use 270, so we must use 360. Look at here now. Here, these two now, we don't use 90, so we used 180. Here, we don't use 270, we used 180. Here, we don't use 270, so we are going to use 360. So for sine theta should be what? Only cos is positive in the fourth quadrant. So I will say sine theta is what? Minus sine. So I'm using 360, and 360 is bigger. So I will say 360 minus theta. Are you getting it now? So for cos theta is what? Cos 360 minus theta. Okay? For tan, minus tan 360 minus theta. Are you getting it now? So because only cos is positive, that is why I did not put minus here. So that is that. For first quadrant, you don't need to do anything. It's already in the first quadrant. But in second quadrant, you say 180 minus, because 180 is greater. But in third quadrant, the theta, the angle now is greater than 180. That is why we say that angle minus. Okay? So the fourth quadrant, we say 360 minus theta. So that is that. Let me clean the board. Now let's talk about angles that are now greater than 360. Okay? Angles that are now greater than 360. Angles. That is theta is now greater than 360. Now, if theta is greater than 360, look at what you do for me. For each of them, okay? Look at what you do for me. Whenever theta is greater than 360, what we do is we keep subtracting 360 until it will naturally fall in a quadrant. Once it falls in a quadrant, then you will now start doing what you are supposed to do. So which means sine theta is equal to what? Sine that theta that is bigger minus 360. Okay? So, cos, don't put any sign yet. Cos theta is equal to what? That cos theta, that cos theta minus 360. For tan theta is equal to what? Tan that theta that is bigger minus what? 360. So you will keep subtracting 360 until it will naturally fall into a quadrant. So once it falls into a quadrant that you know, then apply the law that follows in that quadrant. Okay? So the next thing you need to know is what? Negative angle. So when the angle is negative angle or negative theta. Now theta is now negative. If theta is negative, for instance, sine minus theta. Theta is now negative. Now what do you do for the minus theta? Please, you can solve it in two ways. The first way you can solve it is by adding 360. You know here we subtracted 360. Keep adding 360 until it will naturally fall into a quadrant. So here should be what? Sine that minus theta plus 360. So you will keep adding 360. Cos minus theta is equal to what? Cos minus theta plus 360 tan theta tan minus theta plus 360. Okay, so that is that. So just keep adding. If you add 360, it has not fallen in any quadrant. Add 360 again, add 360 again, until it will naturally fall into a quadrant. Then you will now apply the law that governs that quadrant. There is another method of solving this one alternatively, or another method is that you should know that only cos is an even function. Only cos is an even function, which means sine and tan are odd function. What do I mean by odd function? That sine minus theta is the same thing as saying bring out the minus outside. Then you now say sine theta. Why? Because this man is what? An odd function. Sine is an why? Because sine is an odd function. Then you will now work, let me put my here, put the minus, then work the inside and then multiply by the minus. But cos minus theta is as good as throw away the minus. It's not your business. It's cos theta. Why? Because cos is an even function. Is an even function. So finally, tan minus theta is simply as saying bring out the minus outside bracket tan theta. Why? Because tan is equally an what? Odd function. So let me write it here for you to know it very. Sine minus theta is something as what? Minus sine theta. Cos minus theta is something as not just cos theta without putting minus. Why tan minus theta is what? Minus tan theta. So why? Because odd function, even function. Only cos is an even function. Okay, so that is that for that. So let's solve some questions on this for us to understand perfectly. Okay, so let's take some question. Evaluate the following. Evaluate the following. Number 1. Sine sine 135. Okay, find the sine cos. Let me do it this way. Let me say find the sine, comma, cos and tan of the following angles. Okay. Number 1. One 135. Number 2. Two 40. Number 3. Okay, number 3. 60. Number 4. 300. Number 5. Number 5. 1485. Number 6. Minus 1000. Minus 1500. Okay, so let's solve the solution. This will help you. For the first one, number 1, which says that theta is equal to what? 135. Okay, if you look at this, 135 is in the before you solve this, you must do your cast, C-A-S-T, to know what you are doing. 135 falls in the second quadrant because this is from 0 to 90, 90 to 180, 180 to 270, and 270 to 360. So 135 falls within this range. So I will say what? That sine 135 is same as saying what? Sine 180 minus 135. So what do you have now? Sine 45. And sine 45 is what? Root 2 over 2. Okay? Now let's do the cos. Cos 135 is same as saying it's the only sign that is positive here. So I will say minus cos 180 minus 135. You see, I'm reducing it back to first quadrant, which is what? Minus cos 45, which is what? Minus cos 45 is the same root 2 over 2. The same root 2 over 2. So, tan 45. So, in fact, I will say that the angle I'll be using should be what? 180 minus 135, which is what? 45. So, but let me just be doing this way. So, tan 135. Tan is equal negative. It will be minus tan 180 minus 135. So, I'm having what? Minus tan 45. And tan 45 is 1. So, minus 1. So, number 2. Theta is equal to what? 240 degrees. And 240 degrees falls between 180 and 270. So this is third quadrant. So I'll tell them that what? And only tan is positive in the third quadrant. So I'll tell them that sine 240 is something as saying 240 is greater than 180. We don't use 270 at all. So I'll say minus sine that 240 minus 180. So what do I have? Minus sine, subtract. So I'm having 60. So which is what? Minus root 3 over 2. Okay, so let's go again. Cos 240 is equal to what? Minus cos that 240 minus 180. So which is what? Minus cos 60. Which is what? Minus 1 over 2. Okay, for tan 240 is equal to what? Tan 240 minus 180. If you notice, I did not use minus because only tan is positive. So which is what? Tan 60. And tan 60 is what? Root 3. Okay. So, permit me to clean here. Let me do number 3. Number 3 says, said, sine 60. That your theta is 60. You see, this one is already in first quadrant. We don't need to start reducing anything. Okay, let me make it minus 60 so that we will do something. Minus 60. Okay. So let's do something here. I'm going to solve it in 2 ways. Remember, I will say the first way I'm going to solve it is sine. This is number 3. Sine minus 60 is something as saying what? Let me use even and odd function. So sine is an odd function. I will say what? Minus sine 60, which is what? Minus root 3 over 2. But cos minus 60 is the same thing as cos 60, which is equal to what? Which is equal to just 1 over 2. So the third one, tan minus 60. Tan is an what? Why? Because we have that sine is even function. Okay, so this one, cos is odd function. Cos is odd. Okay, so but tan is equally, what am I saying? Sine is odd. Cos is even. So tan is equally odd, which is what? Minus tan 60, which is what? Minus root 3. Okay, but if you don't want to solve this, alternatively, if you have negative, just keep adding 60 until it will naturally fall into a quadrant you want. Okay, so let's add let's keep adding 360. Okay, if I keep adding 360, which means sine minus 60, instead of saying what? Sine minus 60 plus 360, which is what? Sine 300. You see, 300 is what quadrant? 300 is fourth quadrant. And the sine 300 will give you what? Only cos is positive in the third quadrant. Are you seeing it? So it will be what?